So, hello everyone, and welcome to this production for Shergroup on the Sofa. And today I'm joined by a very good friend of mine who I have known for must be 20 years, and is really a marketing mentor to me when we started to really build Shergroup. And I'm so delighted to introduce Karen Ainley to you today. So, hi, Karen. It's great to see
Hello.
and I wanted to introduce Karen to you because for some of you listening to this podcast, you will find what Karen is doing with marketing very innovative, as she always has been. Haven't you got a degree or you've got some serious qualifications around marketing? I know you were doing some research ages ago on digital marketing.
Yeah, I have a master's in digital marketing. Yeah,
There you go.
but
So
I don't
that's
tell people that.
No, I know you don't. I know you're very modest, but I think that's important because Karen was talking about digital marketing to me before it became a thing. And here she is today, and all that she predicted really has come true. So, I wanted to talk to her today about her marketing agency, Mosaic, and how she has really changed or built on the focus of Mosaic over the last, how many years, Karen? Really, the last 5 to 6 years or longer because
Yeah,
of
so
COVID.
Mosaic's been going 25 years this year, but
Yes.
certainly over the last few years since COVID, we've had to change quite dramatically. And that is because, like everybody else, we've had to be extremely resilient in the face of numerous challenges. And the first one was COVID. And then, of course, the other one that's come hurtling down the block is AI. And then we throw climate change into the mix as well. So lots and lots of things have been happening. And at the same time, digital has been advancing in all sorts of different ways. Very exciting times.
And as you can see, she's an ex-BBC reporter. You can just tell from her voice that she's a consummate professional journalist. And when we were talking, we went out for dinner a few months ago, and she was telling me about how she changed the focus, or I don't say changed, but built on the focus of Mosaic to be this conscience marketing agency, which is so in tune with you because you really do have a huge social conscience and also just want to do the right thing by everybody. And so I wanted to talk to you about that. And I thought that would be good for our podcast and vlog as one of the most interesting people I've met on my journey in building Shergroup. So here you are. And that's fantastic for me. So you had Mosaic publicity. So what has been the change in the name and the focus? Tell me
We're now
about
called Mosaic, the Conscience Marketing Agency, not to be confused with conscious marketing, which is something
that.
that's slightly different, but conscience is actually for brands and businesses with a social conscience. And I think, when you think about the marketing that you undertake, any business, how often do we actually think about the impact that we're having? And I don't mean just whether you're being effective and selling more goods and services. I mean the actual impact on the kind of world that we want to live in and the kind of people that we want to be around. And I think all of us want to do something meaningful for people around us and the planet. And this was my response to that. I think we have to change. We have to adapt the way that we're doing things. And in the old days, the old ways of marketing were, buy, more. It's all about consumerism, and there's still a lot of that around. But we can't keep doing that because we can't keep wasting the resources of the planet, and we can't keep impacting the world in the way that we are. So conscious marketing is all about showing the world you care. And the emphasis is on the word show, because I mean, through the ways in which you're marketing your products and your services, it's no longer good enough just to say, this is what our brand is doing. We also need to talk about how we're having an impact in 5 areas. The five are what I call my 5 Cs. So there's your customers, but there's also the climate, your communities, your colleagues, and it's all underpinned by your credentials. And then that led to me creating a whole new marketing framework, which is now the subject of a book that's almost finished, and also
Wow.
a training course. I know you're an author. I know how hard it is to get books over the line, but I'm nearly
Mm.
there.
Yeah, well, that's great. And is it called the Five C's? What's the name? What's going to be the name of the book, or is that still under wraps?
Well, the working title is Show the World You Care, and it's actually with a publisher at the moment. And of course, they might turn around and say, no, you need to change it, because it's got a tagline which is how to market sustainably, how to promote yourself sustainably the right way, the right
Yes.
way. And I think that's the key to this, because again, what we're seeing is not just here in the UK, but I know in America and other places too, that the legislation is changing, and there's a lot more tightening of restrictions in the way that you promote yourself. So you can't just say you're clean or you're green or you're sustainable or any of these big buzzwords unless you can actually prove it. And proof is a really difficult thing to do. And most marketers don't know what they can and can't do, or what they should and shouldn't do. And
Right.
books that I read were very dry on the subject. So I thought, I know, I'm going to write my own.
Well, that's very interesting because obviously, for a lot of government type work and related work, you have to show these green credentials, don't you? It's all part and parcel of the bid or tender process. It certainly is here in the States. I think less so than it is in the UK, although I'm sure the States will catch up with the UK in that. But you've got to be able to show these credentials. So do you help people with that type of,
Yeah, yeah.
process?
You're absolutely right, because in fact, a lot of those tender processes, and just remember that AI in many cases is actually scanning for your credentials these days,
Yes.
and it will be looking at tenders. And if you haven't got those credentials, or you're not showcasing those great things that you're doing, you're going to miss out on contracts. And that is actually becoming a louder and louder conversation. And one of the things that I did yesterday, and I've been doing a lot with clients recently, but yesterday I did it with a training client, was I said, come on, let's put into ChatGPT who the best provider is of your particular products. And they weren't listed, and they couldn't understand why not, because in a normal search, they would come up highly in the rankings. So then I asked
Yes.
ChatGPT, I said, what are you looking at? What is it that you're determining is, a good factor for your listing? Why aren't you choosing these particular people, these clients? And then it came back with a really long list of what they didn't have on their website. And that's what we're seeing. Part of that is the credentials. It's those often third-party accreditations. It's those things that actually prove who you are, who you say you are, that you're doing what you say you're doing the right way, and also your testimonials, your ratings, your reviews. And the more you look into it, the more you realize, oh my goodness, if I'm not proving that in all sorts of different ways, I'm not even going to get a look in. And AI is going to change the search landscape. It's already starting. I don't know whether you're still searching, Claire, but I very rarely search now using Google search. I'm usually asking either ChatGPT, or I'm using the Google search at the top, and then not actually going into the actual listings, just looking at the AI summary.
Well, like you, I'm a big AI convert, and it's made my job um, immensely easier by using AI as for a research tool.
Yeah.
And and I'm not surprised that the AI is starting to select searching based on green credentials. It will be a huge factor, I'm sure.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, we need to be ready for that. I was just thinking about our Shergroup's own social proof. I mean, I suppose my social proof really has come from the TV shows, which is, quite a bold move in putting, and you know this because you were there right when we started to promote Shergroup. In fact, you were the one that said to me, "You've got all this content, nobody can see it." You remember the sex shop in Birmingham we did? I think that was one of your first kind
What,
of.
did we go there?
I think we had to go and move all the kit out of it. I
I've
think
seen the pictures. I remember
I
it
know
well.
you've seen the pictures. But I mean, yes, I mean social proof. But then people could get into, well, what kind of cars do your agents drive, and what kind of fuel are they putting in the cars, and all sorts of things. And so yes, I can understand why
Yeah.
there's a real need for this in all sorts of clients and their businesses. And
Um,
also, I think many people really do care about the planet, um, and they probably need someone like you to help them.
I think what I've noticed is that the conversation probably 5 years ago is very different to how it is now.
Yeah,
So probably 5 years ago, clients would say, I'm not going to change my fleet of cars because it's too expensive, or I don't believe in it, or actually no one else is doing it in the world. Look at America, look at China, look at Russia, look at India. We're not the big polluters. That's what some people have said to me. And also, what difference is it going to make? Me, little old me, my little company is not going to make the blindest bit of difference to the world and the world in which we live in. But the answer to that is quite simple, and that is if we all think like that, then nothing's ever going to change. If we genuinely believe that we can't halt climate change and the impact that it's already starting to have big time in places, then we might as well give up now. And many of the conversations and the work that I've been doing is actually looking at how you use the right language and the right imagery to promote all of this, because it's very hard to convert people. But fast forward to where we are now, and the conversations that clients are having with me are really different. And they're like, oh, we need to be promoting this because guess what? Our competitors are. That's what they're doing. And oh, our investors want it. Oh,
Yeah.
and employees are asking about whether we've got any, not just green credentials, but social credentials. You talked of social proof, but actually being kind to the employees, their well-being, and kind to their communities. And I don't just mean a token gesture to CSR, let's sponsor this or let's do a charity raffle or whatever. I mean having a proper, structured, strategic approach to these 5 Cs within your marketing activities. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing some really great response when I train this out with companies, and we stick probably over 100 different ideas on the wall. Yeah, good old fashioned yellow sticky post-its, Claire. Literally stick those yellow post-its. And afterwards people are like, oh, look all these ideas we've come up with that we hadn't really thought of. So it's really transforming the way people are thinking about their marketing because of this new world that we're in. It's not a new world, sorry, I should reframe that as the changing world, because it's just getting louder and louder and louder. And I've got lots of information in my book around, why this is important. So yeah, lots to think about, lots to unpick there.
And the 5 Cs, is that a framework that you've developed, or is it something? Yeah, great. Okay.
Yeah, I tell you what happened. I went off to a class to do with presentation skills. And the reason I went is because I thought, will I teach this? So I'm intrigued to see how other people are teaching it. And it was by a guy in the UK called Andy Harrington. And he's a bit like the UK's answer to Tony Robbins.
Okay.
So a really, a good business brain and a business
Yeah.
guru. And I enjoyed it so much. So I'm now part of this community called the Professional Speakers Academy. And while I was there over the last 3 years of doing this, I met so many interesting people who are all speaking on really good topics. And I then realized I got really hooked into it. I just went for a session that ended up being a year's program, and then another year, and then another year. And it's so
Yeah.
fascinating. And I started to realize that actually I wanted something that was a bit more interesting to talk about than what I already do. And we've already done loads of work over the years that are really good, important. We work a lot with the energy sector, done a lot with renewables, a lot with academics talking about their innovations. And I suppose for me, and also a lot of work with companies that provide, I would say, care or social support, particularly for people with complex needs. And I realized that actually, we were doing all this, but we just weren't actually very good at telling other people about it. And as an agency, we're there promoting other people, but all our own stuff fell to the bottom of the list. So that was really why we started to think about, no, we've got to do this differently. And if we're going to tell or invite other people to think about doing it differently, we need to do it differently. It wasn't just changing our name. Every single person in my team has had carbon literacy training. We've been to all sorts of kind of green events where we support our wildlife trust. We're kind of raising money for, environmental causes. And we've got something called B Corp certification now, which is an accreditation, a standard that upholds our sustainability credentials, but also says to us there are certain organizations or kinds of organizations that we can no longer work with that are considered unethical. So we've got to, rethink everything that we're doing as well at the same time. And that includes reducing our own carbon footprint and looking at the carbon footprint of marketing. Because again, I think most marketers aren't aware remotely of the impact of their use of AI or of their use of data centers for big digital campaigns, or if they're running events or going to events, they really haven't thought about the carbon footprint associated with that. And that's what this book is about. It's multifaceted. It's about promoting your sustainability initiatives, but it's also about how you yourself can be more sustainable from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there in terms of they're quite big headlines. But of course, as you get into the nitty-gritty of how to be more sustainable, it becomes quite scientific, doesn't it, in terms of, you know, what fuel you put in the car, or how much electricity you're using, and what your premises look like in terms of, you know, sustainability. And yeah, there's I'm sure the book gets into that. But oh, and such a rich topic in terms of how to develop that out in terms of tools for people, and things to help people get through this maze of green credentials.
And of course, you know, the thing is, people think, oh my God, it's going to be expensive. I can't do that because I won't be as profitable. And actually, there's a lot of evidence that says the opposite. So, for example, Save Money, Cut Carbon is one of the organizations that I've included in my book. And they have helped over 1,000 businesses now reduce their costs and
Right.
by cutting carbon in the process and cutting carbon. And it could be as simple as changing their light bulbs. But when you're
Yeah,
working at big scale with hospitals and schools and, you know, big institutions, they're absolutely, you know, really, really wasteful in so many ways. And so you get someone to come in, look at everything with a fresh pair of eyes, and actually their green agenda is to help them lower their carbon footprint. But my agenda is to help them tell that story, is to help businesses, you know, convey their, I hate the word journey, but that's what they're on. That's what it's all called. And you're never
yeah,
at the end of this journey, trust me. But to convey what they're doing in a way that is really interesting. And this then brings us on to the big topic of storytelling and the language you should and shouldn't use, which in its own right is incredible because, as you know, the world of sustainability is full of gobbledygook and something we call alphabet soup. You know, all these, not just ESG and CSR, but there's a whole load of other acronyms that sit alongside it that the public wouldn't have a clue. You know,
yes,
net zero, what does that mean to people?
yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Go
a very
green.
hot topic at the moment. So okay, so I think from just what you've said so far, we can appreciate where you're going with this, and how valuable it is in terms of not only differentiating your agency from others, but also how important it is for the clients that you work with, and giving them an edge, but a social conscience edge, not just an edge for the sake of it, right? I mean, there must be an impetus at board level or ownership level to want to do this, to be this better business because of these initiatives, right? Otherwise it won't fly, will it?
That's
If
right. And you know, you look at some of the big brands, they've been doing this for a long time. And you
yeah,
look at organizations like Tesco who've reduced massively the amount of plastic that their providers, their suppliers are putting in their, you know, using to wrap their products with. Or
yes.
Superdry, the clothing store, which again, you know, they do a lot in terms of sustainability. They've got a very
Do
interesting
they?
mission, vision, and
Hmm.
values. And when you go around their stores, they're very clear that their mission is to be the number one most sustainable clothing brand on the planet. Um,
Have a large store in Disney Springs, which is my husband's. Well, actually, it's the probably only store in Disney Springs that he actually likes going in to
yeah,
drive.
yeah.
So close.
Unilever, you know, big brands like Unilever. There's a lot of their products they've tried. I mean, Dove is one of my favorite in terms of the creams and the
Yeah,
beauty, but their marketing on that is exceptional because it's really community focused and it's all
yeah,
about you don't have to be beautiful as a woman. You can be whoever you want to be. And all their imagery is about the most diverse range of shapes and sizes and ethnicities and colors and backgrounds because that's what real people are, and they really cottoned onto that quickly, and they have a program in schools with girls to say it's okay to be different. You know, you don't all have to look the same and look like you've, you know, come off a
good for
TikTok
them.
campaign. Yeah, so
Good for
there are some
them.
brilliant brands that are inspirational, and Patagonia is one of the biggest and most inspirational because they've actually given back their business to the planet. So a huge amount of their profit is going into environmental projects, and they've done employee ownership and that sort of thing. So, and that's what I cover in this book, Claire, because when you start delving into it, you think, oh my God, it's only big brands that are doing this because they've got to by law. And then you start looking a bit further down, like you say, the supply chain, where
Mm.
businesses are cottoning onto this. If they want to be part of that supply chain, they're going to have to do it. But you get down to us mere mortals at that lower level, the smaller size businesses, everybody can play their part. Everybody can be a responsible supplier. And yes, you can still make a decent profit to boot. So
Yeah.
I just think, you can say, well, people have been doing this all along. Yes, of course, some have, but many haven't. But this world is changing. And I think perhaps one of the biggest things for me, if I can just touch on the climate a minute, I'm not a placard waving environmentalist, but when you see the data about what's happening and the flooding that we see, that's actually more closer to home in many places, the world actually hit, I think it was 1.5 degrees above industrial times
Yeah.
for the whole year last year,
Right.
which
Right.
what the Paris Treaty, the Paris Agreement in 2015 was all about, was saying that's the upper limit. Beyond that, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
But actually, it's come back down again a little bit, but they reckon that it won't be long before we're back there. And we're into global warming of much bigger scale that's just going to escalate. But I spoke to the most wonderful environmentalist called Professor Jules Pretty, who was in charge of the environment department at the University of Essex. Wonderful, wonderful person. And he said to me, he said, there are, think of this as a dark forest right now. And we're in this dark forest, but there are multiple paths out of this forest. And it relies on three things. And he said, number one is it requires capital investment early by businesses. So get your solar panels on, put some investment into those electric vehicles. Number
Yeah.
two is it requires leadership, true leadership. It requires real leaders to take difficult decisions right now. And the third thing he said is we need marketing. He said it's up to us, the communicators, to help people understand what's going on and their role in changing what's going on and changing their habits and being persuasive. And he articulated it far better than I can. And that will be part of my podcast that people can listen to. It's such a fascinating world that when you delve really deeply into it, you start to realize that we do have the power to change things in the way that, the ozone layer, if you remember the hole in the ozone layer, that was a problem. But then everyone realized and stopped using their chlorofluorocarbons and aerosols, things like that. They changed all that. And, that's altered that hole significantly, I think, to the point where it's not really considered an issue. But the point is that human behavior can change and it can change the world. We just need to have the appetite to do it and to get everybody behind it. Yeah.
Mm. But it was very interesting in COVID, wasn't it? When really the whole world shut down for just a few months, some longer than others.
Yeah.
And the impact it had environmentally. I remember seeing the graphs, of the pollution, which dropped off quite significantly during COVID because we just all stopped creating pollution. And I don't know if that was one of the triggers for you when you decided to go down this path.
It certainly was. And I loved the fact you could walk around and you didn't hear a car, but
Yes,
birds tweeting. And it was
yes,
lovely. It was really amplified.
yes,
COVID was a really big trigger. It really was, because I remember coming home from work and sending all my team home, and looking, I've got these motivational slogans on my wall. It's like, you know, be happy, love your
yeah,
life.
yeah,
Happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. And all these motivational slogans that were like, yeah, hey. And here I was in my study where I am now and looking out at a very wintry scene out of there. And the walls are blue. And I honestly felt everything was closing in on me, because
yeah,
at that point, we
yeah,
didn't know whether we were going to live or die. We knew
yeah.
the statistics looked really bad. And I didn't know whether my business was going to survive. And then you give yourself a really good talking to. And this is what resilience is actually all about. It's
Yeah.
face of adversity, is how you can make steps to turn things around. And I know there were some organizations, some individuals where that wasn't possible, and people whose mental health suffered terribly. But sometimes you also find that when you're in this situation, you do make changes, and you do think, oh my God, how am I going to survive this? And our biggest thing for us as a business that also delivers training was we put all our training courses online, and we created a whole new raft of training materials. We didn't sit there twiddling our thumbs, and suddenly we had clients all over the world. And we'd never had
Yeah,
that before. I was talking to people
brilliant.
in America and still do, and in
Yeah,
Berlin. And it was extraordinary. And then obviously we went in and out of lockdown. Then we had this terrible situation, obviously, with the war between Russia and Ukraine. And you know that I had
yeah,
Ukrainian refugees to come and live with me. And we had this roller coaster of a time, didn't we? Where there was the cost of living crisis here in the UK, and I'm sure
yeah,
other parts of the world too. And we all struggled. It was like this roller coaster, not just for a few months, but it was a really impact time for us and for all our clients' businesses. But I do think that that did make a huge number of organizations rethink the way that they do things, like us having this conversation on Zoom. And
yeah.
it made us stronger in so many ways. And it was difficult, but it was rewarding in other ways as well. I think the most rewarding thing was actually going out into the street and talking to people, actually walking around
Yes.
saying, hello, oh, you're my
Yes,
neighbour.
I definitely liked coming out of my house where I didn't know my neighbours in Norfolk and banging my saucepans for the NHS,
Yeah,
which I probably would never have seen them otherwise. So yeah, there was a lot of community spirit around the situation we all fell into, not of our own making, right?
yeah.
And that was great to see. And I hope that won't be lost. And certainly you're carrying on what you discovered during that period, although I'm sure you knew it before, but that was clearly a big trigger for you to change course with the business. So I take my hat off to you for that. And of course, now you've built a business out of it, which is great. And in terms of sort of um, how companies have continued with this kind of community spirit post COVID, which we hadn't probably seen in our country. I'm talking about the UK, maybe the US as well. I can't speak for other places, but maybe we hadn't seen that, or we certainly wouldn't have seen it in our lifetime, but maybe our parents saw it during World War II, that kind of huge event that was just engulfing, and there was nothing that a single human could do about it, but people came together in their communities. So I mean, is that something? How are companies kind of fostering community relationships, do you think, for the future?
Mm.
To kind
And
of,
and
mm,
some are doing it so well, and some just really, they might have done something during COVID or given some computers or, given a bit of money here and there. But um, I think it's one of those things that people do when they've got time. Or they'll give people a bit of time off at work to go and do a bit of mentoring or volunteering. And it's not always very structured. And I know some of the clients that we work with, they say, Karen, it's one of those great things, we'd love to do it, but actually we've got a day job, we've got clients to service ourselves. So, we can't always be out there doing wonderful things. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is pick and choose the things that are the most relevant to you, that mean something to you. And the other thing that I've found is when you start asking a business, particularly if you're in a training environment, you say, okay, list all the communities that you are involved with. And what they don't think about, they think of the local community. And what they forget is they've also got professional communities. Many of them are members of associations or organizations. They
yes,
don't necessarily think about the fact that they are part of the squash club or the golf club or the kids' PTA. They're all communities. And everyone, if you are a sociable creature, and let's face it, in order to survive in life, going back to the days when we were all in tribes, the reason, and I've done research into this, the reason that we like being part of a community actually is in our DNA. Because if we weren't, we might get, eaten alive by the tigers because we didn't have anyone to come and protect us, or from other predators, other humans.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we like being part of communities. And again, going back to when I ask clients, what communities is everyone in your own organization part of? They were like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about the fact that Bob belongs to the angling club. Oh, yeah, he's got great connections there. Oh, I hadn't thought about something that we might do to support them. Perhaps we could get involved with them in some way. And actually, what that does is it puts your name out there from a PR point of view. Um, it helps on your social media. I wouldn't say overdo it. I would say pick and choose those that are really important to you and give your time because it's relevant and meaningful. in my case, we are supporting our local wildlife trust, and we've just done a big talk with them, a big networking event with them. And also through our training course, we've created a character who's a fish called Finley, who will be guiding people through some of the quiz questions. And when people get those quiz questions right at the end of the online training, what will happen is money will go into the pot for river health, because we believe strongly that one of the big problems that we've got is that fish are not being able to get up to their spawning grounds because there are too many obstacles in the way. Climate change doesn't help. And a lot of rivers are blocked. And so we're doing our little bit in that particular way, that, and we also support our local theatre, the Mercury Theatre in Colchester. So, it may not be a huge amount of things. We have young people in on work experience, but it's our
Always done that.
business.
Always been
Yeah,
great young
small
people.
business. We're going to do what we can to actually, be part of our community, because that's what society is. But the challenge is to say to businesses, to say, to their marketers, to say to their comms people, we're doing this. Have we actually put a plan in place so we can promote this in the right way? Have we thought about perhaps the video that we could do that goes with this? Have we thought about our social media channels and how we're going to promote it on that? We thought about perhaps a press release of the local paper about something that we're doing in partnership with others. So all those channels of communication, what are we doing? Because we have, if you look at the green agenda, we have green washing, which is obviously painting things to be better than they really are, or people have gone the other way, which is green hushing and saying nothing. But we also have
these are two new kind of terms that I've learned. Greenwashing.
social
I
washing.
thought you meant washing on the line that
No,
painted
social,
green.
social washing, social hushing. It's honestly, the jargon is
Oh,
unbelievable. But
oh,
just on that subject of jargon, Claire, I'm just going to tell you this little story because it's quite an interesting one. As I walked through my local Sainsbury's with my mum, and my mum is 89, but savvy as anything, there was this giant poster, and this is really recently. So obviously Sainsbury's being a UK
yeah, grocery store.
grocery
Yeah,
store, for those who may not be
yeah.
aware. Big sign, and it was all about what we're doing for net zero. And then it started talking about decarbonisation. And I said to my mum, I said, "What does that mean?" She went, "Oh, darling, I haven't got a clue. What does it mean?" And I said, "Well, it means that they're doing things to be kind to the environment." And she said, "Well, why don't they just say that?" And I
That's
think,
very true.
we've got into this very, very bad pattern of talking rubbish that people don't understand. And the UK government has literally just put out a survey that says something like half of people in the UK, they might have heard the term net zero, but they don't really understand what it means. So why are we using it? Why, or if we're going to use it, we need to educate people about what it actually means. So yeah, there's a lot of things that marketers and communicators, if you're going to go into this world of showing the world you care, you really need to understand what you're saying, how you're saying it, and also visually how you're portraying it, and using those wonderful stories to help you along the way as well. Because let's face it, we want to do business with companies that care about the world and about other people around them. We don't want to do business with people who couldn't give a damn, who only want to, make tons of money and not share it around a little bit. So I know what I would rather be the kind of organization that I want to, support as well. So I want organizations to be like me, I suppose.
And you have a social conscience, but I think that's what COVID taught us really, that we're very, despite every effort to try and defy it, we are only little beings in a very big universe, and something can come out of somewhere and really disrupt our entire planet without any control at all.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
only thing that we can control um, is our own unit, ourselves, our families, and then obviously from that, our businesses. I mean, we definitely in COVID had the same issues that you did. I can remember setting up Operation Churchill and Operation Eisenhower for two sides of the pond where I work, and organizing my people because everyone was absolutely scared stiff about the impact of, the COVID pandemic on what we did. and just working through it. And as you know, I'm not really a jargon person, so I made it pretty clear what was needed. And fortunately, I have a wonderful team, um, part of whom are in India and another part in the Philippines, and everybody just got on board with it, and was very fortunate to have that. And then as you're talking, I'm thinking about our own footprint. I mean, I'm a big solar girl. I drive an electric car. I'm just about had solar panels put on my roof, really to stop my husband moaning about the electric bill, but also because I really believe in it. I'm passionate about recycling, much to my husband's disgust. So if any of you are listening to this and you have another half that, doesn't put the yogurt pot in the right bin, I'm the one that will fish it out and put it in the right bin, right? I take the recycling out, and then just, cutting out paper in our organization. And there's some things we can't really change very easily. But there are lots of things that we have changed. So it's good for, and I had a dad who was into this well before it was even fashionable, or necessary, and was a big recycler. And so I take this very much to heart, what you're saying about, the impact in the small little things, even like putting the yogurt pot in the right recycling bin, up to the much, much bigger things that you'll be dealing with. But I hope the men and women who are in your organization, who are wanting to do what you're asking them, what you're encouraging them to do, are also doing it at home,
Yeah.
with their kids. And
Everyone's on board, and I really do have a resident greenie in my team who is
good.
driving this so much.
Yeah.
you know
Yes.
and we're very lucky in that respect, but that makes you a conscious consumer. And of course, I know it sounds a bit jargony, conscious as opposed to unconscious after a few gins, but the conscious consumer, you're making conscious decisions that are actually
Yes.
good for the environment. You're actually
Yes.
thinking, you're actually thinking about it. And that for some people is, having bamboo bog roll. I love that brand, Who Gives a Crap, because they've used great humor in their marketing and branding.
That's
It's
very
wonderful.
smart, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, you've got to applaud that, really.
And
The
they really
other
do have toilet humor. Yeah.
Yeah. The other person I think who should be acknowledged for his work on this is Prince William in the Earthshot Prize,
Yep.
just for the innovation that he is showcasing. The way that people are coming up with these fantastic ideas, aren't they, for bottles that, what are they made out of? There's some kind of reusable stuff. They look like
Awesome.
a bottle, but it's completely reusable and completely, just disintegrates. It's fascinating.
And it's not just Prince William, it's actually
Oh,
King Charles, and it's, the whole of the royal family. And of
oh
course,
yes.
lovely Sir David Attenborough,
Yes.
now well into his 90s. And we really do have to thank those people that have always been at the forefront, who've been prepared to stand up and be counted. And that
Yeah.
includes people like Anita Roddick, who founded
Yeah.
the Body Shop. And
Yes.
there are lots of people now who are putting themselves forward. Whatever you say about Greta Thunberg, she's raised the profile of the environment as an issue among the younger generation. And I look at some most inspiring leaders. If we hadn't had the Nelson Mandelas of the world, or some of the really brave people, Malala Yousaf, people like that who were so brave, suffragettes. And I look at all these amazing, incredible people and think they left their legacy. They left their legacy. And so my challenge to everybody, to you, to me, to everybody listening is, what's your legacy going to be? What difference are you going to make to the world around you?
Hmm. Yes, well, that is something that as we get older, we certainly start to think about in terms of legacy. And I think that you have got a tremendous opportunity in front of you, and for Mosaic. Just remind me of the full name of the agency again, this new name.
Mosaic, the Conscience Marketing Agency, and the
The
website
Conscience
is,
Marketing Agency.
yeah, so the main website is mosaicpublicity.co.uk, but we also have consciencemarketing.co.uk, not conscious,
I got you.
consciencemarketing.co.uk. Yeah.
Yes, I got you. So for everybody listening to today's podcast, please look up Karen on LinkedIn herself. I'm sure she's got pages for the Conscience Marketing Agency as Mosaic, and anything else to do with her, because she's a good guy on the planet. And, you know, in this podcast series, I like to interview people that I've met on my journey, who've made a difference to me and to Shergroup. And you are definitely one of those people. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, we ignore the guidance that Karen is putting out there at our peril, really. And I just encourage everyone to think back to the day that COVID hit and in the weeks that followed, where the world stopped polluting itself because we were all stuck at home. So I think that was probably one of the best science experiments ever in modern times. So just to wrap up, in terms of advice for me as a fellow business leader, and for business leaders not only in the UK but elsewhere in the world, you talk to business leaders in many countries now. What advice do you have for them? How can they kind of adopt what you're saying, or get started if they haven't already?
From my perspective, it's all around having a strategy, taking that really strategic approach. And that isn't a short-term thing these days, because you're building a relationship that's going to last you a very long time with your customer, whoever your customer is or client. So if you don't do it in a very structured and strategic way, it's a bit like, how I describe it is, it's a bit like going on holiday without having a destination. And you're just going to wander all over the place, and you might pitch up somewhere interesting, but you might not. And that is the same with marketing. If you go at it piecemeal, and that's the problem I see many businesses have, you're not going to achieve the results that you desire. You're not going to make more money. You're not going to make more profit. What this is about is actually putting a plan in place that will not only be good for you, it will be good for the planet, the people around you, but it will also be extremely good for your bottom line as well.
And you're the girl, and your team are the people for the plan, right? That's what you deliver.
We can help. We'd love to help, yeah.
I'm sure you would. Yeah, don't be modest. She will help you get a plan. That's what she's really good at. And then executing on it, right? Because the plan's no good unless you actually execute on it. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for your time today, and being a very special guest on our podcast. In the show notes, I will put all your channels, and I'll make sure that the page for the Conscience marketing piece is also included, because I've got Mosaic publicity here, but I want to make sure that people can get straight to the content that we've been talking about today. And yeah, I mean, please come back, and if you ever have any updates for us, or you'd like to do a follow-up to this, we'd love to hear about it, because it's very much in tune with what we do here in Shergroup, and have been doing it for a long time. So thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you, Claire. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For everyone else who's listening to this episode, you can find us on shergroup.com, and you can connect with us through our website, by phone, by chat, and by any social media channel you like. I'll again say thank you to Karen for putting me on the track for all of this 20 years ago, and we've built it out in a way that works for us. But this is the lady that helped me so much in the beginning, when I was quite shy about talking about Shergroup, but not today. So thank you so much. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.